is a good number. If you write about somebody else material, how many pages do you think you will be able to produce? Half? Mm. Is half page good enough for a day? Oh yeah, I think so. So don't punish yourself if you haven't written more than a half page. It's okay, as long as you have read and write about it. It's okay. So, but some days you will write more. And therefore I said the introduction part is important because it will take a long time to write, and it will actually also be something you have to revise many times. Okay, so that is the critical thinking. I don't know, since you have already written a couple of these may not be that interesting to you. What do you think? Do you want to go through examples? You can read it. What do you think about these? I think, if I don't remember it incorrect, I think this was first and this was second in this thesis. So, is this good as background? What would you say? IDs?
I mean, they say two different things.
Mm-hmm.
So in the first part, they claim that success, success is because of strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And the second part is management and control.
Yes, absolutely. Which one is more general than the other?
First one.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that this works as a background, or would you say one would be an introduction? What do you think? Could one work as an introduction?
First one could work as intro.
Mm. Exactly. It doesn't really give a lot of information, so it could be an introduction. So you could push it up, and then you have the title background. What about the references? Do you need them? Why do I even ask? Do you really need them?
You have to ask if you're stating something new in your reference.
If this is common knowledge, you don't need references. If it's not common knowledge, you need references. I would say that if we were in a business-oriented area, this is common knowledge. We don't need references. But if we are in this area where you actually borrow things from business area, it's not common knowledge any longer. So sometimes pieces can be common knowledge, and then you don't have to reference it. But at the same time, if you have not come up with yourself, as you said, then you need to reference it. So that's how you work with references. So, but absolutely, this is one example how you can elaborate with the text, and you can move it back and forth and see which one is most general and do you really need it. And general, as you said, doesn't really say too much. It's just introducing in the areas. You know, it's something about profitability and performance. So that's something we only know about. It's heading it towards that. Okay, a background should lead to a problem. And in the problem section, it should be something general to concrete. And then you need to solve one concrete problem. And a problem cannot be too big, too general, and not too narrowed. And you can formulate it as a statement or as a question. If you state it as a statement, you need to verify it or falsify it. You need to say if your statement is valid or not. If you formulate it as a question, you answer the question with a result, which is a little bit easier than verify a statement. You know this too? Know about this? Have you tried to do both? Have you tried to create a statement and then a question? Okay. A question, you cannot have a question you can answer yes or no to. It has to be something that you answer as with a guideline or a prototype or an algorithm or something. So you can't have a question saying that, is it possible to create a prototype to solve this problem? Because then you will answer yes or no. So how would you reformulate that to become something you answer with a prototype?
How can this prototype influence the society?
Yeah.
Or maybe that was too narrow.
Yeah. No, well, I would say more general. Yes, I think so. That's too general.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You have another idea? It's hard, isn't it? You need to think for a while and say, what can you really do? What would a prototype contain to be able to develop or to
Maybe we
handle?
can talk some bit about the stakeholder, what he wants, and then use that in our question.
The question is, can you do that? I don't know. The stakeholder always want to have something they want to get solved. Of course, if they help you with what they really want, you might be able to use it as a question. But commonly, since there is two different things, the thesis and the prototype, you don't just focus on the prototype, you focus on the thesis. So the result is not only the prototype per se. So it's something you do to solve something. So the question should also include both the prototype and what you are solving. And the companies usually don't think that. They just think about the work. So it's really, really difficult. But here is one thing. How should a balanced scorecard be designed to give an increased control over performances? But it could be, how should a prototype be designed, or could be something similar to that. How you start the question depends on if you're doing a qualitative or quantitative work, research. You have heard about quantitative and qualitative?
But can't you do both?
You can, but that will take a lot of time and a big sized thesis. So usually we try to focus on one, but absolutely you can. Because you have, if you do both, you have to use methods for both. You need to show what you are getting as a result for both. So yeah, that does not really double the size of the thesis, but it absolutely requires like 20 more pages if you do. So if you try to stick it with one, that's much better than doing both. Mhm.
Because, yes, we wrote about both in our abstract.
And that you should, I mean, you could, maybe not in abstract, but you should write about both in the method part, but you should choose one.
But if you don't really have a choice.
Well, if you don't have a choice, what can you do? But yeah, if you can, you should. You can also do like you use one part and go a little bit further into the quantitative. So you start with qualitative and just use part of the quantitative, but just a minor part. That works. But not the whole work doing both. So if you start with something qualitative and you do the whole prototype work with the qualitative, you can measure it with the quantitative, but just do the measurement with the data collection method and not drive the whole project with both. So then you actually divide those. So you start with qualitative, and that's just doing the data collection method with quantitative, and that's just good enough. Because tests, you can't do